Hello and welcome to the Pennsylvania New Hire Reporting Program presentation hosted by the PA Career Link in Bradford, Sullivan County, and Tioga County. I'm Ashley Frost. I'll be your host today, and we have the facilitator, Dennis Marsh. Dennis is supervises the Commonwealth of PA's New Hire Reporting Program within the Department of Labor and Industry. He is here today to talk to us about the purpose of the program, the benefits of utilizing the program, and then, of course, the various ways that we can report our new hires. So go ahead, Dennis. Thank you so much for being here, and the floor is yours.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me speak to you today about new hire reporting. Again, my name is Dennis Marsh. I supervise the Commonwealth's new hire reporting program. I work within the Department of Labor and Industry here in Harrisburg in the Center for Workforce Information Analysis. You can see here on my initial screen our new hire program's customer service number and our email address for questions from employers. Typically, this presentation is given to employers, but it is also useful for Career Link staff to know. So let me start off by saying this is what I want to talk about today, the child support program and new hire reporting. So why should employers report your new hires to our program? What's the purpose of it? How we actually find the people who owe child support. The purpose of new hire reporting is that when an employer hires a person, we use the new hire information the employer reports to our program to find out if that newly hired employee owes child support and they're not paying on that child support currently. So what happens is we take that information, we match against child support case files of obligors, people who owe child support but are not paying on that child support. Obligors we receive each week from the Department of Human Services. And if a match occurs, we send the information on the new hire report back to Human Services, and they start the wage garnishment process for the employee to send that garnished wages to the dependent child's custodial parent to support the children or child. I'll talk about how the program works in Pennsylvania, how employers can report your information to our program, and then the benefits for both children, obviously, is in the support they get that they deserve, and for employers. There are real benefits for employers reporting your new hires to our program beyond just it being the right thing to do. And I'll talk about that at the end. If you have any questions, I'd ask you would hold your questions, please, to the end of the presentation. If you could mind keeping yourself on mute to keep the background noise down, I'd appreciate it greatly. So let me get started here and talk about why report your data? Why report your new hires to our program? As I mentioned, the purpose here is to find out where the non-custodial parent, the obligor, is located at, to establish a support order for garnishment, wage garnishment, or enforce an existing order if one isn't being enforced already. We do this by matching against the child support case information, as I said, that we receive from Human Services. The law also allows us to use the new hire report the employers give us to find out who's trying to defraud our unemployment compensation and workers' compensation programs. We match the new hire information each night against claimant files for these programs to find out which claimants are trying to defraud the system. And then if fraud is occurring, we put a stop to it and try to recoup the monies paid out. And they also use the information in a very general sense to find out where hiring is occurring across the Commonwealth by area and by industry. We don't talk about individual employers that are doing the hiring or individual employees being hired by local area, by Career Link office region, for example. But we do talk about broad aggregate level information on industries that are hiring. And you can see here on the screen here, I have a phone number, 877 Workforce Data. That is the phone number for my bureau, the Center for Workforce Information Analysis customer service line, our customer service email address, and our website. You can go there, and we encourage employers to go there and research the information we have available. You can see here on the right side of the slide is some screenshots of some publications on new hire reporting we produced in the center. We don't currently produce this anymore, but this data are still available. And we get thousands of data requests each year from employers about labor market information in Pennsylvania. You know, where should I locate my factory to take advantage of a local workforce? What is the typical prevailing wage I should pay in this industry, in this area? For example, questions like that. So I encourage employers and customers to contact our center for information about the program if they have more questions. So let me go on and talk about how to actually find the obligors who have the child support, how we actually do it in Pennsylvania. Now, every state has a new hire program in place. The process may differ from state to state, but essentially it looks like this, what you see on your screen here. Pennsylvania, unlike most states, houses their new hire program in their labor department. Most states house their new hire program within their child support agency, but we house our new hire program here in LNI in our labor department because it gives us direct access to the wage record data that employers report to us each quarter. And we use that wage record data to verify who is reporting to the new hire program, who is compliant with new hire reporting as employers should be. But the process starts here where the employer will hire someone. Typically, when they're hiring someone to fill a job they have available, they won't ask for if the person knows child support, and the new hire typically won't divulge that. There's no reason to divulge that information. But the employer will do their due diligence and they'll report new hires to our program. And as mentioned before, we match up the new hire information each night to a weekly child support case file received from Human Services. And if the match occurs between the new hire report and the child support obligor case file, we send the information back to Human Services and they reach out to the employer and they establish the wage garnishment process. Human Services actually establishes the frequency of the garnishment, the amount being garnished, and where it's being sent to. It's actually sent to a centralized database called the State Collection Disbursement Unit, and from there on to the custodial parent to support their dependent children. Now, the data are also sent to the National Director of New Hires in Washington, D.C. for the federal government. At the National Director of New Hires, the federal government sees all hiring occurring across the nation by every state program. So that if an obligor who owes child support in Pennsylvania leaves the state, to avoid being found here and paying here in Pennsylvania, for example, they move to another state, hired elsewhere. When they're reported to the other state's program, the federal government sees that hiring activity occur, and they order that employer in the other state, for example, Michigan, for example, wherever, to garnish the wages in Michigan and send the money back to Pennsylvania to support the family here in Pennsylvania, and vice versa. If the obligor moves overseas, for example, there are international agreements overseas with many countries that wages earned overseas in Europe, for example, wages earned over in Europe will be sent back to the United States to support the family here in the United States, to support the dependent child here in the United States. So the process is very effective. The process within Pennsylvania generates around $20 to $25 million per fiscal year. And we generate across state lines, the interstate matching generates another 20 million or so dollars each fiscal year. So we're talking between 25 and $50 million in child support collections each year due to this process, simply by employers doing their due diligence and reporting the data promptly when they hire someone. And I mentioned earlier that we do also use the data to match against the unemployment files in our department. And I'll talk about that at the end. But this essentially is the process here. All employers, regardless of your industry, your size, your occupation, your workforce status, all employers must report information to the new hire program. The only exceptions are two exceptions under the law. Employees of the National Security Agency, the federal government, are not reported to this process. They have a separate process for security purposes. And employees and employers located in federally recognized Native American tribes, where the tribe itself is a sovereign nation. There are around 500 to 600 federally recognized Native American sovereign nations across the nation. They have their own separate tribal reporting program, and they will report the new hires through their tribal process, not through a state program. But those are the only two exceptions. Otherwise, employers must report your new hires to our program. So the information we require from every employer when they report a new hire is the following. You see here on the screen: your federal employer identification number. We ask that you use the federal employer identification number, FEIN, the same number, the FEIN as you use in your quarterly wage report to our program. Typically, most employers participate in covered employment for UC. Around 97% of all employers do participate in UC covered employment, and they'll report on a quarterly basis their quarterly payroll information to the UC program. We ask that you report the same FEIN and new hires as you do on that quarterly payroll report, because we match up, I guess, as I said earlier, we match up the two databases to see who's compliant with new hire reporting. And then you also ask for your company name, your street address, city, state, zip code, and the contact information of the person in your company actually creating the new hire report and submitting it to our program. Why we require this information is because if there's a problem with the data you submit to us, if you're missing part of the name, the street address is wrong, you forget to put a social in, the hire date's wrong, or some other reason, if your data is not complete and correct and valid, we'll reach out to the contact person who submitted the information to us to get the information corrected if our new hire customer service program staff can't correct it on their own. And then for each new hire, we require their full legal name as it appears on Social Security card, street address again, city, state, zip code, Social Security number, the date of hire, and date of birth. The date of hire being the day they first performed services for your employer for wages and compensation, and the date of birth information if they have that available. It's optional though. We ask that if the person you're hiring doesn't have a Social Security number at the time you hire them, don't make up the information. Don't put in dummy data. just to create a report and submit it to our program because it'll flag it as being an error and we'll be contacting you anyway. So wait until the person has a valid social security number to report them as a new hire. It must be a social security number, by the way, as well. It can't be any kind of work number, work permit number, alien registration number. It must be a valid social security number reported in the new hire report. And as far as date of hire goes, under Pennsylvania law, you have 20 days, the hire date, to report this information to our program. Most states have it within 20 days, the hire date. It varies though across the nation. Some states will be 7 days, some states will be 14 days, but in Pennsylvania, it's 20 days. However, we do give employers a break. We realize that you're involved in running your business and you have a lot of staff turnover in your payroll department, for example, or your payroll processing location. So we will accept data with new hire reports going back 3 years from the current date, or up to 30 days in the future. So between those two date ranges, 3 years in the past or 30 days in the future, we can accept a new hire report with a valid hire date. If you're hiring someone today who won't actually start working for you for 6 months from now, for example, though, that's too far out. That's outside of the 30-day date range in the future. So we wait until you actually start, the person starts working for you to report the new hire to our program. Another note here, as you see on the slide, many employers will use a third-party payroll processing company, a CPA or third-party payroll processor, to submit their information to our program. We ask that you verify your new hires are being reported properly by this third-party payroll processing company, and the address where you're reporting your data from should be the place where the wage garnishment payroll is actually being processed at, because that's where the wage garnishment will occur at, where the payroll is actually being processed. So some things to keep in mind, but this is the information required for every new hire you report to our program. So how to report in Pennsylvania. We offer various methods. Our preferred method, obviously, is using the CareerLink system. You can see here on the screen the two URLs highlighted in red, pacareerlink.pa.gov, the website, or the old legacy Commonwealth Workforce Development System, or CWDS, cwds.pa.gov. Both are valid, both go to the same database, go to the same website, and you can use those to report. We ask you use these websites because it's preferred, because it's a secure method of reporting promptly, accurately, and timely. A new twist on this reporting process, however, is that we don't require employers to register with CareerLink anymore to report your new hires to the program. You can simply use the CareerLink website solely for new hire reporting and not for any other purposes. But we highly encourage employers to actually register with CareerLink and use the site as is intended to. You can post jobs you have available. You can search for qualified applicants through CareerLink. You can hire through CareerLink, and so forth. You can actually report your new hires through the CareerLink site itself. And I'll talk about that at the end of my presentation in a little bit. But again, the thing to remember here on this slide is you're not required as an employer to register with CareerLink, but we prefer you do so. Another popular method is secure file transfer protocol. As you can see here, it requires that the employer actually contact our program staff and request to be set up with this method of reporting. What happens is you'll have to sign some security agreements, confidentiality agreements with our staff, and then we'll get you set up with username and credentials that allow you to go to the department's FTP server, and you upload your new hire information right to that server. I'll talk about it in some detail a little bit further on. But these are the two main electronic reporting methods. There are other methods available to employers, manual methods by fax, for example, or on paper, but we prefer to use these electronic methods because they're the most secure and timely and accurate. So here's the CareerLink website itself. As an employer, you go in, you'll select the I'm an employer role in the system. And once the employer services screen opens up, you'll select the I want to report a new hire area. And you'll go to our new hire site within the site itself, on the website itself, and start reporting your data. And if you're using the old CWDS, Commonwealth Workforce Development System page, if you have a bookmark, for example, many employers have this page bookmarked for convenience to remember to go to reporting. You'll simply click the report new hires link under the employer section of that page. You can see here in the top right of the screen on both pages, there's a Keystone login credentials box. You can use, if you register the CareerLink, for example, and you're given Keystone credentials, a login information and password to that registration process. You ever given an employer dedicated homepage within the site, you simply log into the site here and you can start reporting through your homepage. Another thing to note is that if you forget your credentials, you've lost your password, you don't remember how to get into the site, if you contact a new hire staff, we cannot help you reset credentials. You must contact your local CareerLink staff to get your credentials reset. So let me go forward here. So the new hire reporting page looks like this in brief within the website itself. There are various pieces of the page, and I'll show you some of the features here. The top line of the page basically is a ways to report, preferred methods of reporting. There's a calendar events tab you can go to and look and see what's being posted out there as events related to the program. A Learn More tab has various pieces of information, learn more about the program, links to external resources such as the federal new hire site. Other information is available there. The contact information tab provides you ways to contact our program staff by phone, by email, and so forth. Under the Ways to Report tab, there are three main sections, as I mentioned before, preferred sections. Entering manually means you're going to data enter your new hire report right to the website itself. Upload a file means you're going to create a new hire record, a file of new hire information, and upload the file directly to the website. And then the secure file transfer protocol process, which I mentioned earlier. What I'm going to do now in the rest of the presentation is talk about each of these processes in some detail. So the first one to talk about is file upload. Essentially, you're going to go to our site, you're going to hit the upload new hire, upload a file section, start reporting. And what you're going to do is you're going to create a file of new hire records to report right at your workstation, at your work site. And since we don't require you to register the CareerLink anymore, but we still require your contact information, you're going to put in your contact information for your company, and you create your file, and you upload your file through these screens here. The process is the same as far as file upload goes, whether you choose to register with CareerLink or not. The only difference is how you get into the registration process itself. What we require, though, to remember, and important on this slide here, is, as the notes indicate, the file you create and send to us, a new hire record, must be either an Excel file, a text, tab limited or fixed width file, an extensible markup language file, or have a file ending of a comma separated values file. So if your payroll processing software, for example, creates a payroll report of new hire records that differs from one of these file endings, it won't work properly in our system. You'll get an error when you try to upload it. If you have questions about creating one of these files, you can always contact our program staff. We'll be happy to help you with the process of actually creating a file. And our website also provides help to you as far as how to create a file. We provide sample templates of each file type. Shows you an example layout for each file type. You can mimic the file, make your data look like the file type examples we provide in the website to help you through the process. So let's say, for example, you're going to create an Excel file. Your Excel spreadsheet would not look like this one you see on the screen here. It would be simply a white spreadsheet, for example. The colors are only here for presentation purposes. But on your spreadsheet, you use on the first row, the header row, you put in all the data elements you got to report on. You put a 01 in column A and list all the data elements across the top of the header row, your company name, FEIN, and so forth, the whole way across the spreadsheet. The SSN of the new hire employee you're reporting on, their name, and so forth. And then for the next rows down in column A, row 2, for example, and so forth, you put a 02. This tells our system when you upload this file into our system that this record, this row is actually good data. It should be read properly. And simply add in the data elements row by row. How many do you need to report on? 5 records, 10 records, up to 1,000, up to 1,000,000 actually in a Excel spreadsheet now. But in reality, you're only going to report just a few records to the spreadsheet itself. So you'll put in all your data elements. Why I like using this process, this Excel spreadsheet, is because you can dump, if you're a multi-state employer, for example, you're reporting on multiple states, or your branch offices in multiple states, or you're a payroll processing company, you have multiple employer clients, dozens or hundreds of employer clients. You can put all the information on this one spreadsheet and submit it to our program. You can see here the various states of new hire records being submitted. So let's say, for example, you're going to log in with your Keystone credentials. You've went through the registration process. You're going to log into your employer homepage. An example here is showing the employer logging in to their employer homepage through CWS system. And you'll get a sample employer homepage. And the employer homepage has quick links to upload your new hire report, either on the right part of the page or from the drop-down menu at the top of the screen. You'll follow the upload new hire screen. You'll start the upload process. And it said here, it's exactly the same whether you register with CareerLink or you come in anonymously and report to CareerLink. The upload process itself is exactly the same behind the screens. So you'll simply hit the browse button, assuming you created the correct file type. You hit the browse button and you'll find the file on your local machine, highlight the file name, and you hit the open button. And what happens is the system will pull the file off of your machine. I'm summarizing a couple steps here on this one slide. It'll pull the file off your machine and it will verify it's the correct file type. an Excel, a text, an XML, or a CSV file type, for example, and it'll read every row of data within the file, making sure a date is in a date field, a name is in a name field, the numbers are correct, and it looks complete. And if there's information, if there's problems with your data, it'll give you the results of the file upload process here. You can see it might be difficult to see in the screen, but it'll give you a statement saying on this date you uploaded these files, this file of information, and this is the result. Now, if some of the records are bad, you can we give you the option here of viewing your errored records and correcting them on your own and then re-uploading into the system, or to be proactive with customers, with employers, and encourage you to report your data will allow you to push through the bad records into our system. You simply push the file through with good and bad data, and we'll accept it with the understanding that if our customer service staff can't fix the bad records on their own, they'll be contacting you through the contact information you provide in the spreadsheet. So this is the process here for file upload in a nutshell, basically. At the end of the process, we give you a confirmation statement. It tells you on this date at this time, you uploaded a certain file name, and this is the result of the upload process. You can see here in my example, the employer submitted some data. Some of the records were good, some of the records were bad, and we told the employer customer service will be contacting them if they can't correct the records on their own. Now we ask employers print this confirmation page out and keep it for up to 1 year from the date they're reporting. But if you forget to do that, and employers often forget to print the page out and keep it, there is a process we put in place that you can go back into the system and search for these records on your own. Because once you navigate off of this particular screen here, the upload confirmation screen is, you can't go back to it once it's gone. So to allow employers to find the information in the system on their own, we put a process in where you can search for their own records in the system. It's only available, however, if you register with CareerLink and have a dedicated employer homepage in CareerLink. So what happens is you go to your employer homepage, and from the new hires drop-down menu at the top here, you can see you go to the submitted information button. Click the submitted information tab, and the submitted information screen pops up, and you'll put in some information to help the system search for your records. Now, in the real example, you see your FEIN pre-populated here in the screen. I blanked it out for security purposes here. But in reality, you'll put in a few pieces of information telling the system what to search on. Let's say you don't remember anything about the new hires you're reporting on, except you know you reported them within a certain date range. We allow you as an employer to search back up to 12 months from the current date. You can search back in 31-day increments back through time up to 12 months into the past. We don't allow you to go put in 1 year date range and search within 1 year at a time because it's simply too many records to churn through in the system, but you can search back in 1 month increments. Let's say you put in a date range here and hit the search button, and this is the result here. In this example, this employer put in a date range of a mid-July search time period, and it spit back the information here on this record. We give you a partial record back. We don't give you the complete record. We mask the confidential data. We mask the social security number. We give you a partial social, partial name, and so forth. This is just to allow you to jog your memory. Oh yeah, I remember reporting this person without having to contact our program to ask about the same information. Because if you contact our program and you're not registering CareerLink, you ask us for the information by email or ask us for the information over the phone, we won't tell you who you're reporting as new hires into our system because we can't verify your identity as an employer. It's only available if you're registering CareerLink. So this is another plus to registering with the website. You have this feature available to you to search on. So using file transfer protocol, as I mentioned before, this requires you to actually contact our program and get set up with FTP processing. When you hit the start reporting under the FTP tab on our landing page for our program, we'll ask you for the contact information. Basically, you'll fill out this little email spreadsheet and you'll submit it back to our program staff, and they'll get you set up with user credentials, as I said before. A username and password allows you to log into our FTP server here in Harrisburg. Now, the thing to remember about these FTP credentials, they are only allowing you to log into the FTP server. They are not usable to log into CareerLink, and it's the same way you can't use the Keystone credentials that allow you to access CareerLink to log into the FTP server. They're not interchangeable. They're two separate credentials entirely. But let's say for presentation purposes, you have your credentials in place, you have your file created, and you want to log into the server. You'll navigate to the server's website, and you'll put in your user credentials, and you'll start the process once you've created your file on your local machine. It's very similar to file upload, which I just showed you. You'll simply log in and browse to the file on your machine. and follow the wizard that is provided on the FTP site itself, and the wizard will walk you through the process of uploading the file into the system. And there are a couple of slides here. I'll summarize at the end. What will happen at the end of the process, you get 2 email confirmations back to you. The first email will tell you that your file was successfully loaded from your machine, your work site, into the file transfer process server in Harrisburg. And the second email will confirm for you that the file was moved from the FTP server site to the CareerLink system. So that then completes the process of your reporting your data to our CareerLink system. So that's FTP. Using the last method I'm going to talk about is using the website itself, the data enter records right through the website, or using the job referral update process in CareerLink. So the data entry method is using under enter manual process. It's exactly what it sounds like. You're simply going to sit at the website, sit at the screen, and type in the records, record by record, data element by data element. We allow you to sit here and type in up to 50 records per web session, but I never recommend you do that. Don't ever sit here for 2 hours and typing in 50 records at a time, element by element, because if you lose power on your computer, you lose your internet connection, our website crashes, the data are all wiped out. It's not saved in our system until you actually hit the process button to process it into our system. So this method is fine for only a few records you're reporting on, say 1 or 2 or 5, for example. But if you have more than a few records to report on, I really recommend you use file upload, some other preferred method. But let's talk about this method anyway. So what happens is for data entry, you'll simply type in each record, record by record. Through your employer homepage, for example, in CareerLink, you go to the Enter New Hires button or the Upload Quick, the New Hires Quick link on the side there, and you'll type in the records. You'll type in element by element, all your employer information, your FEIN. We ask you to double key it for accuracy, your employer name, contact information, and so forth. You continue the process. What happens here, essentially, this slide is showing you the process in several steps, summarized here in one slide. But essentially what you're doing is you're building a small spreadsheet right on the screen itself. Each record by record, you're building, typing in each element, the SSNs, names, dates of hire. You're building as number of records as you need to process here. And then at the end of the process, you'll complete the process, you get the confirmation statement back. Why this works, why I really like this methodology is because you can't make a mistake through data entry, because the system will not allow you to go forward if you make a mistake. If you forget to put in the first name properly, if you double key the SSN incorrectly, an error message will pop up. So you cannot move forward in this data entry process with errors. It must be valid, complete information to process correctly. So I really recommend this for a few records. It's very secure and very fast. And the last method I want to talk about is using the CareerLink job referral update process itself. What I mean by this is that as an employer in CareerLink, you post jobs, you search for applicants to fill those jobs in CareerLink. And let's say you want to report that person that you hire in CareerLink, you want to report it to the website itself. So what happens is you'll go to your My Talent Search tab on your employer homepage. You'll select the My Candidates button, and for the job opening you're reporting on, it gives you a list of eligible candidates. You'll interview one of those people, for example, and you're going to decide to hire them and report that hiring to our system. So for the particular candidate you're talking about, I've blanked out the actual candidate name here. It's blank on your screen because it's confidential information, obviously, but you'll simply update that candidate status in the system from possibly being hired to actually hired. And I'm summarizing, you'll select their status as hired and update their status. And summarizing a couple of steps here on this one slide, once you select their status as being hired and save it in the system pops up a hiring details button where you'll put in some pieces of information, their start to work date, which is actually the hire date, and their starting wage, their placement wage, and you'll save that information in our system. And once you enter that in the system, the hiring details confirmation box pops up. This is where you're actually going to report this information to our new hire program. You're going to report this person as a new hire to our program right through the website. You'll see a statement here. You hired this person today through CareerLink. You're going to report this new hire to our new hire reporting program. You'll always select yes on this decision box. What happens is if you select no, the job status is closed. The person is hired in the CareerLink system, but the hiring detail is not actually fed across the database to our new hire program. So I always tell employers and CareerLink staff who are updating employer services, doing employer assisted services, always select yes on this decision button. If you happen to select no, what happens is obviously the job order is completed, filled, the hiring is done, but the hiring is not fed across, the hiring statement is not fed across the database to our system. So our new hire program doesn't see the hire occur in the CareerLink system. So always select yes on its decision box here. And at the end of the process, you get the confirmation page again. All the data elements you need to report on have been done. So you completed the new hire report, you submitted it into our system, and you fulfilled your responsibility to report your new hires as an employer under federal and state law. So what are the benefits of all this data reporting to our program? How do children benefit? As I mentioned before, each year we're collecting roughly $25 to $50 million in child support collections. That averages out to about 40,000 employers on average per month, reporting 250,000 new hire reports to our program, or roughly 3 million records a year. Pennsylvania is the 4th largest new hire program in the nation, right behind Texas, California, and Florida. From that process of matching against the obligor case file each night, the new 3 million records coming in, matched against the child support case file. Over time, since this program started in 1998 as part of the Welfare Reform Act, we've identified approximately 2.2 million income attachments, 2.2 million obligors have been found and generated within Pennsylvania well over $600 million. You can see here over $680 million in child support collections just within Pennsylvania since 1998. That's just within Pennsylvania itself. From the interstate process across this nation and overseas, we generated an estimated another 400 or so million dollars. So nearly $1 billion in child support collections just by this process over the past 20 years or so. So this is how children benefit from the employers doing their diligence and reporting the new hires to our system. So how do the employers benefit? As I mentioned before, we use the new hire report to find out who's trying to defraud our unemployment compensation and workers' compensation claimant files programs. We match the new hire report nightly against these claimant files. And if somebody's trying to claim unemployment, for example, they'll file for benefits. Let's say they call the teleclaim system, and the PAT teleclaim system will ask them during the claim week you're filing for, claimants typically file for 2 weeks at a time. It'll ask them, did you receive wages or compensation? In this instance, the person is working under the table and they will say no to that question, which means they're trying to defraud the system because the new hire report indicates that they actually did work during the time period you're trying to claim benefits for. Now, under our UC law, they are allowed to work up to a partial benefit credit level. For example, $50 per week, they can earn in partial wages. Anything they earn above that must be given back to a UC program on a dollar-for-dollar basis. In these instances, these people are trying to claim the full UC benefit they're entitled to, plus work under the table and not declare those wages through the new hire reporting. But our new hire program finds that information through this process here. And what happens is if the UC claimant actually ends up being in a new hire as well as our report matches, we put a stop on the claimant and we identify if a fraud is occurring, and then we recoup the money from the claimant. And in most instances, if the new hire is reported quickly, once the hiring occurs, we stop payment entirely and the money's never paid out. Otherwise, if we don't have the new hire report in hand, the system is designed to pay out on UC claims. So what happens is the claimant will continue to defraud the system until they exhaust their UC claim. And then when the quarterly payroll report comes in months later, 6 to 9 months later, we'll find out, oh, actually that claim was fraudulent and the money must be recouped back from the claimant, the money that we paid out. So it's very hard to do that. So in this process here, identifies the fraud up front and puts a stop to it. And you can see here since the start of the program in 1998, roughly 103,000 instances of fraud have been found, people trying to defraud the system, and we recouped $48 million back for the employers in your UC account. This is going back into the employer's UC trust fund balance is basically what's going on here. Now, why it's important for employers to report the new hires to us is, as I mentioned before, our system is not designed to find fraud. It's designed to pay out claims. So unless somebody tells us they're frauding us, and UC, for example, the claimant's not going to tell us. The employer is not going to know unless somebody tells us through the new hire report. We're not able to find the fraud. So the more claims being paid on by the employer, the higher their experience rating in our UC system is. So if we can identify which claims are fraudulent and stop those, that lowers the employer's experience rating in our system, which lowers their quarterly tax, which saves the employer's money. So that's essentially how employers benefit from the new hire reporting process. So for more information, you can go to our program website. You can review our website. At the website itself, you'll see links to videos. We have little informational videos posted where you can review the information that's talked about, review short informational videos, how to upload a file, how to data enter through the website, how to use file transfer, what the program is, for example. They're always available here. You can always review them as you need to. And if you have questions, you can contact our new hire staff. You can see the PA Career Link website address, our new hire customer service line, or our new hire email address. Now, we do recommend that if you're contacting us with questions, only questions about new hire reporting. We do not accept data reported by the phone or by email attachment. So for example, you create a new hire file and try to attach it to an email and submit that email to our program. Our customer service staff will not accept that new hire information by email because email is not secure. It's easily hackable, and you're sending us confidential information through email. So it's not advisable to do that. In fact, it's not allowed by departmental laws and regulations. You must use one of the preferred methods I talked about. Some states allow employers to report by email, either through attachment or typing in the email itself, the new hire information, or they allow employers to report by phone. Pennsylvania is not one of those states. We do not allow that. If you have questions about a current child support case that you're handling as an employer, you have an income attachment you're actually doing now for an obligor, or you have questions about the child support process in general, you can see here you can contact the child support services for more information about it. That basically concludes my presentation. Any questions about new hire reporting?
So I don't see any questions in the
Okay.
chat. But how often should employers be reporting their new hires?
Every time they have a new hire occur, they should report it, ideally within, as I mentioned before, within 20 days of the hire date. What happens is if the employer reports, let's say, for example, you hire someone today and you report that new hire today to our program, it'll get submitted into our system. It'll match up with the obligor case file technically within 3 days. So within 3 days, in theory, we can start a wage garnishment if the new hire actually owes child support not paying on it. So that's how quickly the process could start. Now, in reality, it may take a little bit longer than that to actually get started, but in theory, it could take within 3 days to start the process versus not reporting your new hires and finding out that employee actually owes child support. You're not reporting it to our program. It could take a long time to find the obligor. So I encourage employers to always report the new hires, regardless of the people owe child support or not. Report your data to our program.
So that being said, what do you think is the easiest way or the best way to report the new hires out of the different ways that you showed us?
I would highly recommend that employers go to our website and ideally register with CareerLink and use the processes through their employer homepage, either file upload or data entry. But if they want to not register the CareerLink but still report your data, then they can simply go into our program website and type in the contact information and use file upload. That's really the fastest and most secure method.
Do employers need to report when an employee that was newly hired is terminated or quit?
No, we do not require terminations or quits be reported to our program, except if the terminated employee is paying child support, the wage garnishment process, the employer must report the termination to the Department of Human Services, not to our program. They report it to the Department of Human Services, typically through the county where the domestic relations office is located at, overseeing the wage garnishment process is where they're reported to, the local county domestic relations office. But terminations in general are not required to be reported to our program. No.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Dennis. I don't see any other questions coming in.
Thank you.
And we really do appreciate you taking the time to kind of go over all of this with us.
I appreciate it. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak to you today about new hire reporting.
Absolutely. You have a great day, and thank you everyone for attending.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.